From one country signing in new driving laws to another recovering from a road crash that claimed over 53 lives. A total of 41 of the 53 bodies of victims of the Londiani junction traffic accident kept at the Kericho County Hospital mortuary have been identified. The county executive committee member in charge of Heath's docket, Brenda Bii, expressed confidence that the remaining 11, I beg your pardon, badly mutilated bodies would also be identified by their grieving families.
Brenda Bii also called on anyone with useful information to reach out to Londiani Hospital, where body identification and contact tracing efforts are currently on the way. Now, to bring us more update on this ugly crash in Kenya is Daniel Ominde Okoth. He's the lead editor, Africa Blogging. Good morning, Daniel. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on the show this morning.
All right, very ugly incident we've seen here happening in Western Kenya. Can you give us further details into how this happened? We've been talking about unfortunate accidents that have been caused in different parts of the continent as a result of overspeeding. Is this the case here as well?
Yeah, so it's very difficult at this point to determine at what speed the vehicle that caused the crash was traveling at, but it's highly suspected that the vehicle was overspeeding. But there's also an element of crowding in the area that the vehicle was at when it lost control. So this was a trailer that was traveling from Mombasa, going at the Kenyan coast, going all the way to Rwanda. It was transporting cement. So the trailer at the back of the lorry snapped from its trailer bed and fell onto the road. And in that process, because the vehicle was at a considerable speed, it ramaged into other vehicles that were stationary. Some of these were public service vehicles. Others were private vehicles that were waiting with the passengers just had gotten out to buy stuff or buy commodities from that informal market that I was speaking about at the Londiani junction. And then also the traders who run their business there, selling their wares. It's a very the Londiani junction is a very busy spot in the highway that connects Nairobi to the Western Kenya. Most people traveling to the counties of Western Kenya of Kericho, Kakamega, Kisumu, Siaya, Busia, from Nairobi, they pass through this particular joint, and especially over the weekends and a month and weekend to be specific, it's very busy with people going home to see their families, up country, visit their relatives, people going for weddings and funerals and things like that up country. So that's why it's an accident that took place in a very busy area, and that's why we are seeing such heavy death toll from that particular crash.
That's really, really sad. We're going to talk about infrastructure in a bit, but I want you to also speak on something. I just, found now that, in 2021, 20,625 people were involved in road crashes in Kenya. 4,579 died. 10,000 got seriously injured, and of course, 5,900 were slightly injured. Of course, those figures increased in 2022. So let's talk about, infrastructure and what must be done in Kenya in particular, if there's any plans of reducing the mortality and the frequency of road traffic accidents.
Well, there have been efforts that have been put in place by the government, especially the government agency that is in charge of road safety, the National Transport and Safety Authority, and some of these efforts that they've put in place have usually been very reactionary as a result of previous crashes that we've had, where a lot of lives have been lost, and there's been quite a huge uproar, and people saying we don't need to be losing people like this. But every other day on the road, we have people dying from accident caused by border operators. These are the motorcycle taxis. We have people dying from matatu accident or accidents caused by PSVs. Sometimes the numbers are not as huge as this one. They don't create such international interest. But any life lost on the road is one too many. There's a family that's been left grieving. There are people who've lost their friends. There's somebody who's been meaningfully engaged in creating income and revenue for this country who's lost their lives. The government initially, is part of the blame game was going in terms of the government, in terms of road signages, poor conditions of the roads with potholes and things like that. But we've also seen sustained efforts by the government to try and improve the state of our infrastructure across the country. Right now, we have like really very good roads, but the problem is also with having very good roads is that even drivers would usually drive, very slowly, very carefully when the roads are not in top-notch condition. Now have an excuse to speed because the roads are, sort of in perfect condition. And in some areas, like just about like 30 or so kilometers where this particular accident happened is another spot that's usually has been designated as a black spot. It's called the Sachin-1 area. And so many people, hundreds of lives had been lost in that particular spot. So it took the government to, after a very serious accident in 2017, in the December of 2017, December 12th to be specific, to bring in place or to put in place a dual carriageway in this place so that oncoming traffic and traffic going the other direction do not meet. And that is one of the reasons, behind a reduction of traffic accidents across that particular area. We've also seen sustained efforts when we have traffic accidents, especially the ones that involve a vehicle carrying cross-border goods, especially petroleum. There used to be cases where when a petroleum tanker turns down, people rush there with jerry cans to siphon fuel. Again, tragedy has happened. People have lost their lives when those tankers blew up because, somebody had a cigarette lit around the vicinity, and so many people died in such incidences. Then, of course, the government, of course, as usual, they come up with reactionary measures. Like even for this particular accident, the government has said they want to move that market away from there, from that crowded section of the road into a place where people can move in with good parking space and so on and so forth. But it's not that these people are not there because they're in existence of the market. They are there because of the behavior of people who buy their wares from them, who are the motorists. The vehicles that come and stop at that particular place is where the reason why they are dangerously trading, besides the road. And this is not an isolated incident. From the story that you read, like just a day after this very devastating accident, they are back at the same spot. They are still selling their wares there. Of course, they are aware of the danger that they are putting themselves, that are exposing themselves to. But when you speak to them, they tell you, I have to weigh, between, being careful, going somewhere else where I feel like I'm safer, and being at a place where I know when I'm here, I'm actually going to make a living for my family. So we have to strike a balance between one, creating a safe space for these traders to be able to go about their businesses selling their wares, but also educating our motorists, educating the people who buy from them that, you can still go maybe, 500 or a kilometer, away from the road to safely buy, products from these sellers.
So many things you've mentioned, Daniel, really, in terms of how people respond in the face of crisis when an accident has occurred. And there are projections that by 2030, we would have 13 million deaths worldwide caused by road crashes if urgent intervention isn't being done. Thanks for highlighting this point. And I hope that the government of Kenya is paying attention and will do the needful to ensure that Kenya's statistics to that contribution is greatly reduced. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Okay.